Chris Lynch Local News with Boxman, Christchurch's affordable storage and container facility. Discover their state-of-the-art warehouse in Dakota Park near Christchurch Airport.
And Christopher Luxon now joins me. Good morning to you. Good to see you.
Good morning, Chris. Good to be with you.
Interesting, we're talking about the 10-year vision that National's got when it comes to transport. There is some good news, I suppose you could say, for roads around Canterbury. What do you got for us?
Well, look, I think there's two major pieces. One is the Pegasus to Belfast Motorway and the Wood End Bypass. That is one of the more dangerous parts of State Highway 1, and to be able to continue north of the city, to be able to extend the motorway up in the way that we have done before, I think will be really good. And obviously a second Ashburton Bridge, which I know is further south of Christchurch, but also a good access point to getting to the deeper South Island. So, and then there's just a range of improvements, whether that's in Horsehall Road, Whedon's Ross Road, the Tinwood Corridor improvements again south of the river over Ashburton, Brougham Street, Rolleston access improvements. There's a series of ongoing things that we just want to keep working with and continue to do. But hopefully, people in Christchurch understand, the National Party and the National Government will be a party that gets infrastructure built. That's so important in this country. We want to be a small advanced economy, one of the leading small advanced economies in the world. And one of the 5 things we have to do is invest in infrastructure. And that's what this announcement's about today.
Those roads that you just listed off, when you say there'll be upgrades, what do you mean by that? Because arguably the likes of Brougham Street's going to have cycleways and less car parks and all that kind of hoo-ha. What's the difference with what National's plan is?
Well, it's really making sure we've got ongoing maintenance on those areas. We know that they are pinch points and then we know that they need maintenance. And so just constantly improving and upgrading those areas in particular is what we've had good feedback from the people of Christchurch. But obviously the major bits is, that Pegasus to Belfast motorway and the Wood End bypass. And then, as I said, a second Ashburton Bridge, which I know doesn't help the people of Christchurch per se, but it does help when they're moving down to Dunedin to watch the Bledisloe Cup or something else like that. So that will be good.
You've heard that the likes of David Parker saying that you haven't costed these projects. Yeah. What do you make of that? What's your response to those comments?
No disrespect, given the economic mismanagement from these guys and from this Labor government. I don't really listen to them too much at all. Here's the deal. We're going to spend $24 billion over 10 years doing a series of infrastructure and roading upgrades across New Zealand. That'll be roads of national significance. It will include public transport, and it will also include improving resilience on roading as well. All of that is less than the $30 billion that David Parker wants to spend on Auckland Light Rail, a project that frankly no one wants. We will cancel that. And I think we're getting much better value for money by making all of these upgrade investments across the country and for more people to have bigger impact and impact their daily lives in a much better way than the $30 billion that he's planning to spend on light rail alone. We've taken the existing business cases, Chris, that are available from the officials, and we've taken the upper end of those estimates as well in all these cases. And we've also built contingency in. So, we're very confident we can deliver this.
I note that the AA is supportive of the National Party policy when it comes to infrastructure. I suppose there's no surprises there, but it will be interesting to see if the media covers that off.
Yeah, well, look, I think the thing is, again, you've got to start with a vision. And my vision is I want New Zealand to be one of the leading small advanced economies in the world. And that means we've got to be modern. It means we've got to be ambitious and have some aspiration. We've got to have a plan. And really, this is what this 10-year plan is about. We're going to lay it all out. We're going to also make sure that we work with councils in 10-year cycles, not in 3-year cycles, which leads to a lot of turning projects on, off. A lot of projects under this government, it hasn't even started and finished a single project. And so, there's a lot of work for us to do in terms of getting infrastructure right. But part of it starts with a good plan and then having some good tools and processes around us to make sure that we are managing it incredibly well.
Nicola Willis leaking, if you like, Labor's apparent GST policy. What was in that for National to do that, though? Because arguably, isn't that a voting winner, GST on fruit and vegetables? I think people would quite want that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, look, I get I get people say, often people would come up to me and say the same thing. Look, why don't we take, GST off food, for example? And it's a lovely idea, but it's incredibly complex to do. It also means that it ends up helping richer people rather than poorer people. And it also means that there's a risk that actually the money doesn't go through to the consumer. It actually gets padded into supermarket profits. And that's why Grant Robertson himself, as the finance minister, has ruled it out and called it all sorts of names. That's why the expert tax working group ruled it out as well. So, on the one hand, I get the practical populist politics around it. which is, I think, where Chris Hipkins is trying to go. But on the other hand, it's really bad policy. And the better answer, as we've been talking about, is to give people income tax relief and just actually let them keep more of their own money that they earn so they can spend and save it as they see fit. So that's a much more efficient, better way and has more impact, to be honest, than doing this.
For the second time this year, Christchurch's only 24-hour surgery, private surgery, has had to close. You can't really call it a 24-hour surgery anymore. I spoke to the Prime Minister last week, and he said they're trying to fix the problem, but it's not going to be a short-term solution. Even now, they have allowed more nurses and doctors to come through to New Zealand, but the training for new recruits is going to take years, in his words. So there's no quick fix solution, or is there? Because what would National do?
It's because the government put the focus on the wrong thing. It went into restructuring Health New Zealand and the DHBs, and all the emphasis and all the focus went there rather than actually building out our workforce. We're going to do a couple of things. One is we're going to make sure that we say to the 2,000 nurses and midwives that graduate every year in New Zealand, if you stay in the country for 5 years, we'll give you $22,500 off your student loan. We'll open up those immigration settings so you can come to New Zealand with your family without a job, and you'll find one, and then we'll pay you $10,000 to relocate here. And then the third thing we're going to do, Chris, is obviously extend 100 more places at both at Otago and Auckland medical schools, but then open up a third medical school, which will train another 120 doctors a year. So we'll end up home growing an extra 220 doctors over the 540 that we already have today. So, that's what we've got to do to get the workforce moving and to build and develop homegrown talent, as well as open up our immigration settings. And I'm quite excited by that third medical school idea, because essentially it's a graduate medical program, which means it's a 4-year program rather than a 6-year one. And actually the first year is done at Waikato University, and then the next 3 years are actually done in regional hospitals, community medical centres around the country. And all the research says that if you end up working in an area in a regional New Zealand or regional anywhere, you end up actually building social connections, and you end up staying and becoming the local GP or working in the local regional hospital there. So it's a different way of us getting the talent trained and then offshore. I mean, here's the sad thing. We have 350 Kiwi students that are actually studying in Australia because they couldn't get into New Zealand medical schools because the cap was too small. So we're expanding that cap quite dramatically. And so we get going with 100 places in 2025 and the existing medical schools. We open up Waikato in 2027, and by 2030 we should have the 220 extra doctors coming through.